What's good, people? Agent Juice reporting for duty. Today's drawing inspiration subject is one near and dear to my heart, for I shall be drawing Bill Watterson's brilliant creation of Calvin and Hobbes, with my own little additions, of course. Calvin and Hobbes is a work that needs no introduction, but for those of you weirdos who've been living under a rock, Calvin and Hobbes is a comic chronicling the wildly imaginative adventures of young troublemaker Calvin and his best friend and stuffed tiger Hobbes, who acts as the more rational of the two and plays the straight man of the duo. Calvin and Hobbes is a work that had the most profound effect on me during my early childhood. The only other thing in those early days that even came close would probably be the OG Power Rangers, but that's another video for another day. Anyway, Calvin and Hobbes is a work that I draw a massive amount of inspiration from because it speaks to me on a multitude of levels. While some works I've mentioned before have characters or instances that I really admire, with the rest of the work either falling by the wayside or not really having that much of an effect on me, Calvin and Hobbes is a work where just about every aspect of the storytelling deeply resonates with me. For you see, when I was young, I was Calvin. I was a little hellraiser who spent my time daydreaming impossible scenarios when I wasn't causing some kind of destructive ruckus that invariably landed me in deep trouble many, many times. It seemed like fate that I discovered the plentiful Calvin and Hobbes anthology books so early in my childhood and immediately latched onto them. In that moment, I finally had someone I related to, someone who got me, understood my way of thinking and outlook on the world, someone who scoffed at staunch and oppressive authority figures while engaging only in the free and imaginative ways of life. There's a lot of talk about representation in media these days, but let me tell you something. Very few, if any, fictional characters I've come across so far in my entire life up to this point have come even close to representing me in my way of thinking the way Calvin does. On the other side of the coin, Hobbes was a fascinating curiosity to me at that age because he represented a strange analytic and rational mindset that I didn't realize I had. Now, I don't mean that in a self-aggrandizing, I was a self-aware and clever boy for my age kind of way, but rather whenever Hobbes was the voice of reason to Calvin's indignant rantings, by the way, that I agreed with, I was always forced to take a second to really think through the initial point and almost begrudgingly admit to Hobbes's points while still nodding along with Calvin's fiery diatribes. In short, Hobbes served as a devil's advocate that Calvin and I didn't want, but rather needed. Now, this wonderful gem of a comic provides more than just good characterizations and their two titular leads. It also has some of the best art I've seen in a comic to date. In fact, I feel confident in stating that it was Calvin and Hobbes that single-handedly inspired me to get into drawing cartoons to begin with. Now, as a child, I drew about as much as the other children, both on my own and as part of various projects and class assignments. However, once I started getting into Calvin and Hobbes and seeing some of the wild and wonderfully imaginative worlds and scenarios that Bill Watterson was creating, I knew in my little black heart that I wanted a piece of that action. Everything from the crazy designs of aliens of Calvin's Spaceman Spiff adventures to the truly outlandish things like T-Rexes and F-15s. I had crazy daydreams of my own that I wanted to make a reality. And Bill Watterson's superior artwork and clever writing showed me that if I were to master the art of, art, then I too could make those dreams into a reality. And so I drew. And copied just about everything I could from every Calvin and Hobbes book I owned, which I owned several. I drew every alien, I drew every backdrop, even the boring background stuff like trees and grass and houses. I looked at it, I observed it, I studied it, and I drew it. Basically, I broke that cardinal artist rule of observing real life and instead observed every panel of Calvin and Hobbes that I could find. I have drawn much inspiration from Calvin and Hobbes, and I wish to continue to do so for a long time to come. I not only want to create work that has incredibly engaging and memorable characters and wildly imaginative plots and scenarios. I want to create work that is as timeless as Calvin and Hobbes. Something that can be looked back upon fondly by countless people for generations to come. And even beyond that, and maybe even something that inspires someone else to make their own legendary timeless work. Wouldn't that be something? Yes, I owe more to Bill Watterson and Calvin and Hobbes than I could ever express in a single video, even if it were a super duper long one. But in order to keep with my short format, I'll go ahead and wrap it up here lest I ramble for a billion years. So, if you enjoy my musings in which to have a chat with me and see more, do a brother a solid and go ahead and rambunctiously fondle those happy little buttons and feel free to comment below and let me know your thoughts. It helps the channel out in the algorithm, and I'm always curious as to what you have to say. In addition, you can find me elsewhere on various social media links that I'll link in the description box down below as per usual. And with all that said, I thank you for spending this time with me. I hope you all stick around, and until next time, deuces.